Thank you. Senator Parent, it's great to see you today. I am
Great to
Kendra.
meet you.
Thank you, Price from Emory University's Office of Government and Community Affairs. So I'd like to start by asking you to introduce yourself and tell us the area that you represent.
Well, I'm Senator Elena Parent. I represent District 42 in the state Senate. I will be going into my 5th term in the state Senate. Our terms are all 2 years. And the reason I can say that is no one ran against me, so I happen to be unopposed in this current election cycle, although I will not officially be reelected until November. I am fortunate to represent parts of North DeKalb, parts of South DeKalb, and really a lot of Central DeKalb in the state Senate. I've got the Emory and CDC area. I've got the city of Decatur and Avondale Estates, going south of those 2 cities a bit. And I go up into the southern parts of Brookhaven and Chamblee as well.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. Did you get any new constituents with the redistricting that just happened?
I did. I will actually lose the precincts that I had in the city of Chamblee.
Okay.
I will go slightly farther east, not outside 285 though. I still stay inside 285. I forgot to mention I actually do have part of the city of Tucker even now, and I think I maintain part of the city of Tucker. And I will go farther south of Atlanta and Decatur just a bit, a little bit more south of East Lake and East Atlanta. I'll go a few precincts farther south.
Okay, good to know. Thank you for that.
But it's largely very similar to my current district, so I'm fortunate in that regard. Yeah.
Great, wonderful. I know a lot of things have changed as of late.
Yes.
And I know that session is over, but can you talk about any of the committees that you have been assigned and what your role is on those committees?
Sure. So in this last 2-year cycle, I have been assigned to 4 standing committees. They are the Judiciary Committee, and I'm an attorney, so most of the members of the Judiciary Committee are attorneys. The Rules Committee, which is a post that I have achieved largely due to my role as the chairwoman of the Senate Democratic Caucus. There are only 3 Democrats on that committee, and that's the committee that all of the bills have to flow through before they come to the floor of the Senate. And the main power that I have on that committee as a member of the minority party is that the members of the committee are given the opportunity to pick legislation to be put on the floor.
Okay.
It does give me some ability to help elevate bills and issues that I might care about to ensure that that issue and that legislation is given a vote on the Senate floor. So we pick the bills to go on the general calendar for the Senate. I am on the Special Judiciary Committee, and I am the vice chair of that committee. And I am also on the Education and Youth Committee.
Okay.
So those are my 4 committees, and they could change when we reconvene in January. But I have actually been on all of them for a little while now.
Okay, great. Thank you. During this past session, did you work on any specific bill or bills of particular interest to you?
You know, we are always working on myriad objectives. Some of the ones that are particularly important to me, we have a longstanding effort to try to achieve Medicaid expansion in the state of Georgia, to have our education funding formula be fully funded. Those are two big initiatives that I've worked on and the Democratic Caucus has worked on. I have worked to try to have funding for additional counselors in schools, especially Title I schools, where our counselor to student ratio is pretty high.
Yes.
And pretty far out of line with what the ideal recommendations are. So, I'm very aware that a lot of students, especially if they're from a family that's lower income or did not have parents who matriculated to higher education, are a little bit at a disadvantage if they don't have anyone to sort of like walk them through the steps of what they need to launch successfully as it relates to higher education in particular, but also as to a career.
Yes.
So counselors are critical for both. And so I've worked to get money for that in the budget as well. A couple other initiatives that I think really matter for the business community. I have tried to elevate apprenticeships as well as the ability of more students to take advantage of dual enrollment programs and in a way that's effective for them.
Okay.
Those are especially important because if you are a student from a first generation or lower income family, a student can really achieve a lot of aims and put themselves on the path to graduation a lot more quickly if they avail themselves of dual enrollment. And that will be, paid for by the taxpayers.
Yeah.
And college, as we know, can be incredibly expensive, and that can be such a barrier for a lot of families and a lot of graduates. So making dual enrollment not only accessible, but also effective and efficient by guiding students into which courses they need that will help them move them down the path towards actually earning their degree, ones that will provide not just credit, but required credit towards a diploma or a bachelor's or associate's degree is critically important. So we've done a lot of work in that space. So yeah, those are some of the big things that we've been working on.
Well, that's really awesome, and it's so needed in the community, I would say, because I do a lot of work with community engagement through Emory, of course, and just being in the community and being a force to help people to do things that they should and maybe they just need help with. So I think that's important. Do you work with the school system at all to work with those pathways and those
Yes, so we had around some bills that I filed related to dual enrollment and helping kids have the information they need to best select courses that would actually move them down the road to core credit versus like an elective type
right.
credit. Around those pieces of legislation that I filed, we had several really good conference calls with folks from DOE, folks from the University System of Georgia, folks from the Technical College System of Georgia, and it's about sort of coordinating all of those groups to help the kids be the most successful.
Wonderful. Thank you. So did you see, or was there one issue that you felt was the most pressing during this session or this past
So
session?
this session, I'd say a couple things. The biggest issue of the session really stands out as the Mental Health Parity Act, where
Yes.
we were trying to make very important strides to have mental health care addressed and covered to the same extent physical health care would be. And this really is such a pressing issue. You see so much coverage of mental health crises among teens and also within the general public. And that's due to a number of things. But just regardless of really what the causes are, we know that folks need access to mental health care in order to address that and to thrive. So that really is pressing it. And what made it so pressing is, I think, probably some of the fallout from the pandemic and how stressful that has been on so many people. And that sort of elevated already rumbling mental health crises in our state. So that one certainly was excellent. I would also say that we certainly are still dealing with other fallout from the pandemic, that being the fact that many children, millions of children, missed a lot of time at school.
Right.
And were remote learning. And I've always been a believer that, especially for our kids, younger than high school, that missing out on in-person learning is going to have some pretty serious negative repercussions. And that's not getting into a judgment call about whether it was the right thing. Certainly that's a whole other conversation. But the fact is it happened, and that puts a lot of kids behind. And that is a very scary and very dangerous thing. We've got to catch those kids up. One of the things that we were able to do this year is fully fund our QBE formula. And we do have federal COVID relief money in from Washington. All that needs to be used to great effect to really do everything we can to have our children brought back up to speed and really do further work that already is ongoing and really needs even more focus on as it relates to kids, because we still have way too many that don't read proficiently at benchmark milestone years. We're doing some work around that, for example, funding certain programs, beginning to fund certain programs related to dyslexia screening. There's a much higher percentage of kids than the general public might realize that have dyslexia or other conditions for which programs designed to teach dyslexic kids to read would also be effective. Deploying those much more broadly is going to make a huge difference. I mean, it could be up to 20% of children. That's huge. That's
Wow,
huge.
it
And
is.
so we're saying, oh, this huge number of kids doesn't read proficiently by third grade. Well, a huge chunk of that are kids with dyslexia or other reading learning differences. And we've now begun to identify that problem, but not enough yet has been done to work its way towards the solution. So things like that really need to continue and frankly be considered more important than right now what I see the General Assembly doing in that regard. Instead, we spend a lot of time with like stupid culture war messaging bills like, oh, we shouldn't be, forcing, parents need to be allowed to not have their kid wear a mask. We spend a lot of time on that, not as much time on kids with dyslexia. And unfortunately, we find that a lot. And that's because things like getting our kids to read proficiently, which is an urgent problem.
Yes.
Harder to solve, and also costs some money. Whereas stomping around and screaming about masks is very easy.
Yeah, unfortunately. It's
Unfortunately.
really good to hear what you do every day at the state capitol under the Gold Dome and just knowing how it affects us in our community. So thank you for all that you do.
Well, thanks, Kendra.
You're welcome. I have one last question for you. Can you talk a little bit about some of the groundwork that you're laying to help economic development in DeKalb County? And I know you talked a lot about what you're doing with the youth. So can you talk a little bit about that for us?
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much. So, I mean, again, things like focusing on how we can have more kids be successful academically, not just throughout elementary and high school, but also within college. And that does fall into a couple of different buckets that I'm working on right now. First of all, closing achievement gaps, having more of our kids read proficiently, which falls into addressing some of the learning differences that I think are holding some of our kids back. Then there's things like work-based learning or apprenticeships that could be really, really successful because kids can graduate with a skill set as well as a diploma, that makes them immediately employable. And they can still go on to higher ed if that's their path. But if that's not their path, and it won't be the path for everyone, things like work-based learning programs can make a huge difference and have in a lot of other countries that I've studied for sort of really making a dent in the problems that we still see around dropping out, for example. So that's another issue. Then there's the higher ed piece, making college affordable for more folks and families that don't have the means to pay really high college bills. So in that space, we've been doing work on elevating dual enrollment programs and making them successful and efficient. Another program that I've spent a lot of time working on is our high quality childcare subsidy that exists. It's a joint federal and state program called CAPS. That's an acronym, and the words behind it are escaping me right this second, but CAPS, C-A-P-S. And we've been able to, through some work that I did in partnership with some other organizations, we have been able to have higher ed be an allowable activity under CAPS, because studies that have been commissioned by, for example, the Metro Atlanta Chamber of Commerce demonstrate that a lack of childcare is a huge barrier for a lot of folks in finishing their education and in being able to contribute to the workforce. I think the study put out by GEARS, which is the Georgia Early Education Alliance for Ready Students, and the Metro Atlanta Chamber showed something like 8 to 10 billion in lost economic activity due to childcare challenges. So this CAPS program is very well situated to address that. And when I filed the bill to allow higher ed to be a qualified activity under CAPS, my thought process was, this is a win-win. You know, if the mom and dad or the dad can finish some higher ed, get a credential, their earning power is increased. They will be able to climb the economic ladder. The children are going to be better off due to that. And then you're helping, you know, this sort of family lift itself up from out of kind of dead end, low wage jobs. And isn't that a win-win? They're going to end up paying then more taxes back to the state. Right. So, you know, let's put more money in that program and not have these sort of artificial, what could be artificial roadblocks stymie a family from being able to get their education and therefore really launch a career that's going to be a lot more beneficial to them, their kids, and frankly, society writ large. So I'm still going to be doing a lot of pushing around that program.
Wonderful. That is great. Wonderful. Yeah. Yes, well, I know we have to hop off, but I wanted to ask you, do you have anything else that you'd like to add or like for the chamber members to know?
Yeah, just, well, you know, really just want to say thank you to all of our chamber members for the work that all of you do, but also just being involved in public policy. You know, it really is critical. And we know that basics like education and transportation are as integral to the success of our businesses as, you know, tax incentives can be. I mean, we have to have that whole ecosystem working, and you know, we know that businesses give back to the community a lot and do care about the quality of life that we have in our community. And having your voices at the table around things like education and childcare and transportation are instrumental to getting our state government to make those targeted investments that really are needed and have to be done, you know, via cooperation with the government and getting those things done. It's important to have your voices involved. So thanks so much.
Well, thank you so much. And thanks again for all that you do every day for, you know, our community, going to the Gold Dome every day for us. So thank you for all that you do. If you ever need anything from the chamber or Emory, please let me know. And it was great to meet you. Okay.
Thanks so much, Kendra. Have a great day.
You too. Take care.